right, let's see if I got my co-host here. Where's my co-host? Hi, Rev.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I've not done a TikTok live in a fairly long time, so everything's new to me all of a sudden. It's crazy.
Yeah, you've changed platforms, or you're
No, I
just
just I haven't done a live in months. Like that's how you and I met. I was looking at some of your lives and what you were doing on TikTok lives, and then I started doing some lives, a lot of different tests, and then actually now that I'm in Bali, I don't do as many lives because the Wi-Fi connection isn't that strong.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit hit and miss, but yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I'm happy to see you. You look alive, well, unbothered. That's good.
Thank you. I feel alive. Bali's just one of those places. I moved here a bit over 12 months ago now, and it's just very good vibe. It's just very good energy.
Yeah.
Everything's very close together, or everything that I need is like very close together. Saying to a friend yesterday or the day before, if I was trying to live this kind of lifestyle in Australia, I'd probably be spending at least an extra 10 hours in a car commuting to do the things that I want to do. Yeah.
And so, for all the wonderful people here, this is Rev, Revel. He is a consultant to a lot of different industries, but mainly he loves to help small businesses, and he loves to do it well, apparently all over the world. Right now, he's in Bali. So, what brought you to Bali?
It was a change of environment, right? So I was based in Australia, technically still am, and I've been to Bali maybe 8 or 9 times already. It's very close for Australians to visit Bali, and I was like, you know what? I was already working from home. I was already doing like the Facebook ads, the TikTok ads, the Instagram ads for other businesses, mostly service-based businesses to generate more leads, and I was already working from home, obviously through COVID as well. And then it's like, I should try this digital nomad thing. And I really like Bali because the beach is very close. It's a 2-minute scoopy ride. So they call the scoopies over here, the scooters. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. And so the ocean was about 2 to 3 minutes away. So that was a massive plus. The cafes that I enjoy, I eat out every day, very, very close. The gym, 2 to 3 minutes down the road. Everything was just very, very convenient.
Yeah.
And so I kind of weighed up, and the cost of living is very low here. That was really cool. And then the biggest plus for me was it's like a highway for very successful entrepreneurs in multiple verticals and multiple industries. And so I was able to connect and network with more people that I was interested in networking with, like other advertisers, other entrepreneurs, people doing some really cool stuff, very inspiring individuals that I wouldn't have access to or wouldn't be able to rub shoulders with in Australia, right? So the networking opportunity was massive, and it ended up that I actually see more of my friends and family in Bali than I did living in Australia, because everyone comes to Bali at some stage at least once a year for a holiday. So yeah, huge pros. Yeah.
That's exciting. Oh my gosh. I've noticed a lot of people are changing, moving, doing the nomad thing. I recently moved to the mountains. It's different. It's a very different thing, but it's a good vibe. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing, I think it was Alex Hormozy talk about it years ago, and it was one of the easiest ways that you can be more productive and, generally speaking, be more successful in business if you're starting out, is to change your environment. And I never really understood it until I moved to Bali, and I was like, everything's so much more convenient. Everything's just so much closer to me. I'm surrounded by people who are doing better than me, more successful, just doing really inspiring stuff. Whereas at least back in between Queensland or Western Australia, where I was based between the two, there's just not as much access. That makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely good energy. I definitely understand that.
Yeah, I felt like living in the city in Calgary, you weren't able to really rub shoulders unless you're specifically doing a specific engagement. With here, everyone, it's like a small little village. Everyone knows everyone. You have to rub shoulders with everyone essentially here. So I like that. It's
Yeah,
very
that makes
quaint.
sense. I grew up in a small town as well. There's about 4,000 people in a place in Australia called, or a state, New South Wales. A little beach town called Foster. And it was like, those were the days when we would literally leave our front doors open at night. It was that kind of town. It was
Really?
amazing. Yeah, yeah. Still
Well,
the same circle of friends from back then that we grew up with, 20, 25 years later. Yeah, it's cool.
the other day, actually, I had a neighbor ask me, why do I lock my door? I was like, well, because I'm from Toronto. And in Toronto, we lock our doors. But
Right.
thank you for the reminder that I'm not from Toronto anymore. So are you still doing the same thing there? So you are doing the same thing there. And you're just,
Yeah.
so are you, now that you've been there for 12 months or so, you want to transition or you're still thinking about it?
I will be here indefinitely. Yeah. I'll be here indefinitely. It's just so easy.
Yeah.
And like, I've heard a lot of people talk. I haven't had this experience, but a lot of people have talked about getting visas are really difficult. But I've got a really good visa agent. I literally was talking to him this morning. Organizing a passport extension, does everything. Like literally does everything. So that's not an issue for me. And Australia is 3.5 hour flight away. It's very close, very
Yeah.
very close. So if I need to go back for I've got a vested interest in a solar installation business in Australia as well that I head all the marketing and IT operations for. And so if I need to go back for any big meetings or with our business coach or anything of that matter, or to see friends and family if anything comes up, then it's close enough to go back. Yeah.
That's good. So, how did you get into the nomad lifestyle? How did you get into helping, smaller entrepreneurs or other entrepreneurs?
I was trying to solve my own problems at one point, which was not getting enough opportunities to get customers. So this goes back a while. So I've been clicking around on Facebook ads for over 12 years, since about 2012, I think it was. And this was the time when the only thing people knew about marketing, at least in Australia, was handing out flyers, doing letterbox drops, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was handing out something like 550 flyers a day. I was actually putting them under screen. I was actually putting them under or on top of people's cars on windscreens, because all of the train stations in Australia, everyone that commutes to the big city or travels to the big city will park at their closest train station and catch the train into their work, into the big city. And so I'd go out and I'd put out like 550 flyers or pamphlets a day on these cars. And I would get one inquiry from 550. So it's like 3.5 hours, 4 hours work. I remember it like it was yesterday in like the hot 35 degrees Celsius Australian summer. And I'm sitting here putting out flyers, and it's just, to break it down simply, I was in a lot of pain trying to figure out, how do I not do this? Because this doesn't feel great and I'm not getting the result that I think I could get. And then I discovered Facebook ads, and I had a small budget. It was like $5 a day back then with my first business. And $5 a day on day two, I got something like 3 or 4 really good inquiries of people who wanted to work with me. And I'm like, I'm not handing out flyers anymore. I'm going to just keep running Facebook ads. And then I started to want to scratch a niche, which was, I wonder if I could help or teach people on how to do this for their own small businesses, because my ethos is doing things in a very lean fashion, or bootstrapping, I think it's called, where every dollar that goes into any effort to get you a new customer, we need to see a larger amount come back, or a return on investment come back as soon as possible. And then that opens up opportunities to, scale, spend more on advertising, get more customers, make your product or service better, so on and so forth. And so that's how I got into the Facebook advertising. And then when Facebook acquired Instagram, I jumped into Instagram advertising. I still remember the first ad I ran on Instagram Reels when that was a thing. I don't know how many years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that worked very well. And then TikTok really took off in Australia maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. And that was the first place I ever took organic content seriously. And I was the first place I ever took organic content seriously. And And then I started to run the ads on TikTok as well. And it was pretty much the same as Facebook, except you had to be a little bit more creative with your ads. And then over the course of the last 12 and a bit years now, I predominantly work with service-based business owners who want to get more customers from paid advertising, or consult them on how to craft ads that differentiate themselves from their competitors, which is a real passion of mine. That's my creative outlet. Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of creative outlets. You used to do, I used to watch your lives and you would be strumming on the guitar. I have no idea what you were playing, but it sounded really, really good.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, how do you use your creative outlets to continue your business? Like, does that help you in some way, shape, or form, or is it just fun for you? Like, how does that?
At this point in time, I think two scenarios, if I was broke, then I don't think it would be as fun. I do feel very comfortable. The solar business is going really well. We've got about 45 staff. The advertising that I do for people now is do I feel like it's a good fit? Like, do I feel like I'd get along with them as a human being first? And that's kind of always been my ethos. It's always been a mantra that if we get along as human beings first, we have great communication, like any relationship, not just business, then it usually works out very well. And so off the back of that, I've found that where my creativity comes into it is the need to be creative and the satisfaction that gives me. So for example, a client that's running a photography studio in Perth, he's got about 6 or 7 sales staff, and he sells these big, beautiful photography shoots, mostly for women and couples. And he's had a couple of massive wins in the last week that we've been talking about and mentoring and training him on. And it's kind of like the same job satisfaction you would get, I would imagine, if we were builders building homes, and from clearing the land to putting down the concrete footing to then giving the keys to a new homeowner who you built the home for. Same kind of job satisfaction. It's just it's a little bit more geeky in the sense that click buttons, set up campaigns, craft beautiful ads that differentiate a business owner from another business owner or competitor, and then seeing the results. Obviously, it's like, yeah, we're helping these business owners make more money, and I think that's great. And I'm going to waffle a little bit here, but I started in fitness and I moved to Facebook advertising because I noticed that when money was tight, people's finances was a little bit tight. Their health and fitness, or whatever they're paying towards those expenses, was the first thing they would take off the table. And so I thought to myself, well, if I help people make more money indirectly from advertising, maybe they'll have more time, more freedom, more money to look after themselves. That was the sort of mental pivot several years ago. Yeah.
Well, it seems like you've pivoted a lot in the last few years. How important is that to identify in your business when to pivot? Like, is there a specific, like, I feel like people only pivot when there's a complete meltdown.
Right.
Like, what are the signs of, like, maybe I should pivot in my business a little bit, like change something up?
Great question. So I can only speak from experience, right? So this is just my opinion. I think everyone should take it with a grain of salt because it could be wrong. But the times that I've pivoted is when I've set myself a goal to do X with a deadline. I think deadlines are very important mentally and emotionally to remove emotion from some of our, let's say, new business ventures. And so I've had a lot of different businesses that have failed. And to me, it's been more of like an itch that I need to scratch. But where I've pivoted away or pivoted into something has been, I had a seed business through COVID. This is one of my favorite.
What? I didn't know about this.
Stories. I haven't made a video on it. I don't know why I haven't. I just keep forgetting. But I had a seed business because this is how my crazy mind works. I was like, okay, there's a pandemic, there's a virus going around, the world's going to end, right? like it's a bit of catastrophizing, but bear with me. I'm like, okay, people are going to need food because supermarkets are probably going to close or grocery stores are going to close. So they're probably going to need to know how to grow their own food. Maybe they'll need vegetable seeds, right?
True. Yeah.
So one way that I validated that was I looked online, I Googled, and I was like, is there any company selling seeds, vegetable seeds? And they were all completely booked out. Like some companies had back orders of like 5,000 orders online. And I'm like, okay, there's a demand here. And so I got a hold of some seeds, made a Shopify e-commerce account, and started selling within about 2 to 3 days. And it worked. Like, it was very profitable. I was selling seeds for like $5 to $6 a packet of like cherry tomato seeds. And then I realized pretty quickly that when I looked at the amount of labor that was going into that business, because I would get up at like 5 a.m. and I would start counting out tomato seeds like a drug dealer, putting them in a little packet, you know? And then I worked out the hours going into that business, and it was about $32 to $33 Australian per hour. And I was already doing advertising. I was like, okay, this doesn't feel great in terms of the return for the energy going into the business.
Yeah.
And I'd set an intention to spend something like $1,000 or $1,200 on advertising, give myself 60 days in order to validate whether this was a good idea. And it worked out wasn't a great idea. And so I figured that out quicker I think about 30 to 40 days, and hadn't spent anywhere near 1,200, but figured out that, hey, this doesn't make sense, you know. So that's where I pivoted away from that idea. That's more so to do with new ventures, but with, say, advertising, overarching, you know, to make your service or your product known to people. I'm not as heavy on TikTok advertising to date, because Facebook has stabilized a little bit more over the last year. So for me, pivoting to say something that's still within my vertical and paid advertising is really down to staying up to date and staying in the trenches, understanding all the nuances of that. However, when I think about pivoting, and what I think most people identify or describe pivoting as is, I'm offering this service and now I want to start a brand new business and offer this service. I think there's a fine line between, are you making money and are you bored, right? And you're sick of solving the same problems. And in which case, I'd be like, in my experience, you're at a point in business where you have to do the boring stuff in order to keep growing. And I think that's normal. I think that's very normal, in fact. Our solar business is boring as hell, I'll be honest with you. Like, I manage the marketing, redo scripts, my business partner does the video ads, I launch them. It's just the same thing over and over and over. Him and I are we're the kind of people who jump off the cliff and assemble the plane on the way down, and hopefully it's flying before we hit the ground. We've always been this, like, very similar. And so we're always bouncing business ideas. You know, maybe we should start this company for water filtration for homeowners, because we already know how to target water filtration. It's like, no. We've got to keep our eyes very fixated on the target here, which is the solar business. So that's that, pivoting if it's boring but you're making money. And then there's pivoting if you don't feel like it's working, which I think might be most people. So like for the seed business, I was able to identify that it didn't make financial sense to keep running it if I have a better option. So there's that. If you can measure those outcomes and it doesn't make sense to keep running it, or you've been losing money hand over fist, and in which case I think that's why setting deadlines to see success is important, and then evaluating. So it's like, well, I'm going to give it 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, 5 years to figure this out. But in terms of pivoting, sorry, you go.
No, go ahead. It depends on pivoting.
So like in terms of pivoting into a different business or a totally different offering or service, if your last one isn't working, I'm just very careful about that have I dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's? Have I actually tried as hard as I possibly am? Or am I just fixated on this new shiny thing that I might be more interested in because it's new, it's fresh? The dopamine is oozing out of my ears because of this new, fresh idea. And I think that's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you said boring earlier, I find when it comes to entrepreneurs and they get bored, it's more like kind of losing that excitement, losing that sense of why. Like, why the hell am I even doing this? You get caught up in like the weeds of, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. And it's like they get bored. And exactly what you said, like these little things, they need to be done because they're like the cornerstone of your business to help the blueprint of building your business. But yeah, it does get really boring.
Yeah.
When it comes to deadlines, how do you? I don't like deadlines. How do you?
Fair
How do you
enough.
challenge yourself to get to that deadline? Especially you don't have anyone else to. Well, you have your business partner to kind of back. You know, you guys are bouncing things off of each other. But like, what
Yeah.
kind of puts a spark under your butt to finish your deadline?
I would say that, I mean, if other people are relying on you, which I think it's a great feeling to be wanted, like to be of service to other human beings. It's a great feeling to be needed, right? And so that holds me accountable for, say, clients, like the photography client I was talking about just earlier. I had a call with him this morning. And so those kind of deadlines come easy, but if it's a deadline for yourself for validating or invalidating a business idea or a new process or whatever it is, the deadline I found is really important for me because it allows me to remove emotion out of validating or invalidating this business idea. And that's important. And I found that I catch myself, this was around sort of like 2018, 2019, which is like the golden era of Facebook ads. And I would catch myself saying things like, I feel like my ad targeting isn't working. Or I feel like I'm not reaching the right person. Or I feel like these ads aren't as good as they should be. Or I feel like maybe my service isn't good enough. That particular word right there isn't real because we haven't been able to measure it. What you can measure, you can optimize, right? So the deadlines allows you to move the emotion out of whatever it is you're doing so that we're not saying things out of intuition regarding our business. Because if we want certainty with our business, we want certainty around, I know I'm going to get 50 new customers this week, and I know out of those 50, I'm going to get X, Y results, and therefore I have financial certainty around where my income is at. You can only really get those from being able to measure where you're at, where you need to get to, and how you go about getting there, right? But I always used to catch myself back then, several years ago, saying things like, I feel this or I feel that. Whereas the deadline allows me to be like, okay, we're going to give this 90 days or 6 months, whatever it ends up being. And in those six months, whatever it is, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z steps. And in those X, Y, and Z steps, I'm going to measure my progress this particular way, right? And so there's no emotion involved, which is great. And so when I get to the end of this deadline, or even subtly before, because I've identified beforehand that this is not working, I think it's really important, at least for me, that I can then put my head on the pillow, having scratched that itch, knowing that I did everything that I could to make that thing work, and that I didn't make any reactive decisions around business because of how I felt about how things are going. I've got the real world data to prove that it is or isn't performing well. Yeah.
Interesting. Mo- uh, Motivation is saying a goal is basically a deadline, and a dream is still in your imagination. Interesting. Once upon a time, this was a dream, a pen, a thought.
Yeah.
How do you go from something that's a dream or something that, because I talk a lot about intuition on my page,
Yeah.
And I'm shifting into more of the psychology of how our brain works, how we fix things into habits. And so, how do we take something that's a dream? Because now you're in Bali. Now things are getting a little real. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
how do you quantify it? Like, how do you set that up as a deadline? Because that's something that's a little bit. It feels more. It feels bigger than you.
Yeah. So, I mean, the risk is very low. Like, if Bali doesn't work out, I go home. I fly 3.5 hours back, and I'm good to go. I'm very fortunate where over the last several years, I've not intentionally, but have built a business that I'm working from the laptop. Wasn't intentional. I noticed one day I was working at home all the time, and I was like, oh, I could go somewhere else and still work. Let's try that. And here I am 12 months later, right? So it wasn't intentional. I need to be super clear. Um, but in terms of, I guess, in terms of identifying where the dream maybe becomes a reality is, I think a lot of the, at least in my experience, I found I tend to work with people who overanalyze before doing anything, which I think is very normal. Like, obviously, I imagine there's mechanisms within our brain and our own psyche that wants to protect us. And so we try and identify all the ways that it may not work out. And we want to get this big list of why it may not work out before we take any action and waste time, get hurt, lose money, dot, dot, dot. But so really, I forget who it was, but there's a very, very good business guru. He's been around for years and years and years. He said something like, if you know everything there is to know about your industry, you're already too late. If you know everything that there is to know about your service, you're already too late. And so if it's a case of trying to be successful measured by how much revenue you can generate and how many people you can impact, you're never going to learn faster than from the day you actually start doing something. So the faster you can go from dream into simple things like starting a couple of social pages, start talking about the problem that you solve for people, start giving away value, all that kind of, the faster you can go from idea, dream, if you want, into breathing life into that, so reality, the faster you'll learn, and absolutely the faster you'll be able to build, a sustainable business from that.
So essentially, it's inspired action and going again with your instincts or your intuition. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
so it's interesting. Before you were saying a lot of I feel statements, and you switched them to more of like I think statements. So really, kind of when you're going through a challenge, like getting out of your body into your mind, or you're more of like a cohesive. You make decisions from the cohesive, like brain and heart coherence, as opposed to just what. Like, how do you do
That's a
that?
good question. I think I may be a little bit too heavy on the logical side, if I'm going to be completely transparent. The times that I've noticed where I'm more intuitive, believe it or not, is when I can't really describe why I'm doing something on a particular Facebook ad campaign for a client. But in my mind, it's like I'm probably drawing from some experience. But for whatever reason, I can't describe why I'm doing it. Right. So
Consciously.
that would be the immeasurables. But the other 90% of the time, the action that I'm about to take would be unreasonable that it wouldn't be successful. Right. And that might be from experience, that might be from influences that I trust, that might be from the research that I've done. But me personally, I've always been a very fast executor. And I think I'm a fast executor because I'm impatient and I want to fail fast, I think is the terminology, so I can learn faster. To me, that's big. Like, it's no different to me, it's no different to doing reps in any shape or form, whether it's at the gym. Fitness has always been a big part of my lifestyle for regulating how I feel feeling better in general. Um, and so the reps that I have done over the last, say, 12 years of training in the gym, I associate something very similar with learning new skills and validating concepts in business or starting a business. And so if I was, for example, pull-ups for me are very easy now. I only got good at doing pull-ups or chin-ups from doing lots and lots of reps. I was working it out the other day, funnily enough, because I had this conversation with a friend here. And I was like, man, I reckon I've done something like close to 25,000 pull-ups since I've started training, right? Obviously, like impossible to do them all at once, but there's feedback loops that happen very fast from doing a lot of reps, not even a lot of reps, just committing to reps over a certain period of time. And then in that regard, I'm learning a lot about my body. I'm learning about how things should feel when I'm training. I'm learning about what sort of feedback my body's giving for me, like how sore I am, whether should train today, all that kind of stuff, feedback loops. But if I try to do all the research on how to do the perfect pull-up without actually doing a pull-up, I do myself a disservice by not giving myself that experience to experience the feedback loops, which I learn faster. And I feel like business is exactly the same, especially with some of the different products and services that I've tested out over the years, where if I can just get started, even with a minimum viable product, then I can figure out very quick whether people want it. I can figure out very quick whether I can sell it. And then I can figure out very quick whether people value this thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's always been more important to me as a priority, as opposed to spending 6 months on a website or spending a couple of years building an app or something like that, and then figuring out upon launch, people don't actually need it, or people don't actually want it, or people don't see value in it. Yeah, so the speed of execution, at least for me from a logical side, is justified, in my opinion, by saving time, I think. Yeah.
Well, and that's why you hire a coach to save time. They've done it, they've been there, and they can save you a lot of time and headache. Not to say that you're not going to have challenges when you're with a coach. My neighbors are happily drinking outside. So a couple things I wanted to touch on, like the fact that you're saying, you did more chin-ups, so you got better at it. Like everyone wants to be amazing at business, but there's a level of competency that you need to build. Yeah. And that's the only way to build confidence is through competency. So basically everything that you've done in your previous industry, you kind of just put a different perspective on your business. Like you kind of pulled some parallels. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it just made, like the way that I think, I feel like the way that my brain reframes things in my own advantage has always been really helpful. I actually feel sometimes like maybe I'm overly optimistic. I'm not sure. But yeah, like the reframing from say like, okay, people stop spending money on gyms, people stop spending money on fitness first when their finances are struggling. How do I solve that problem? And then I go a little bit further downstream. At the really good example, at the moment, it's anyone could go on YouTube and learn how to set up a Facebook lead generation campaign to get more customers, or at least more opportunities to sell their services, to have an impact and help people solve their problems. Less people know how to create ads that differentiate themselves from their competitors, that really stand out, that hook people, stop them from scrolling, obviously, and that can deliver a message in such an authentic way that in that first 30 to 60 seconds of that video ad, there's so much trust that it's a no-brainer for them to reach out, make an inquiry, and book a call to talk about how you can help them solve their problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Overly optimistic. You're related to motivation over here. That's exciting. Yeah. I'm so glad that you guys are connecting with the conversation. I literally do not have any questions for Revel. I'm just enjoying the conversation. So Revel, When are you going to start doing your lives again and playing guitar?
Well, I've got an acoustic guitar here, but I oscillate in and out of playing guitar depending on what I'm listening to. So when I was had a home base in Perth in Australia, had the full setup. You know, I don't know if you remember. I had the full streaming kit. I had the short
Yeah.
SMB microphone, the one that Michael Jackson recorded Thriller album on it, that Joe Rogan and all those guys use for their podcasts. So I had the full setup, had the really nice camera, had the electric guitar, and I started buying them because I was listening to a lot of blues. I was listening to a lot of this kind of, I would just say, chiller genres of music that I hadn't listened to in a long time. I'm like, I would like to learn that. These days, I listen to songs, but I'm actually more listening to the instrumentals as opposed to the lyrics majority of the time. And because I don't have the electric guitar and all that kind of stuff, and I don't do that too often, but on occasion, I'll be listening to something, or I'll be at a cafe or wherever, and I'll hear something within earshot. I'm like, that would sound really good on guitar, and then I'll pick up the acoustic and I'll have a little play around, and then I'll put it down for a month. It's really strange. It's like it's a really inconsistent relationship I have with my guitar at the moment. Yeah.
The itch you got to scratch, though.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, it absolutely is. Absolutely is. It's funny you mentioned that. A lot of things that I do are more of an itch I have to scratch, and if I can do that with pretty low risk, then I'll usually do that. You know, whether it's like I was remixing. I am not a DJ by any means, shape, or form.
Okay.
But I heard Usher's song from way back when, DJ's Got Us Falling in Love Again, and then a few hours later I heard Miami to Ibiza by whoever it's by, Swedish House Mafia.
Yeah.
And within earshot, I was like, oh, they sound like they're in the same key. They would probably work together. So I matched the song together. It's no different to guitar, where I'll hear something. I was like, that would sound really cool on guitar. So it's kind of like, again, like inconsistent relationship that I have with like playing guitar at the moment. Yeah, but I would like to start doing the lives again. At the moment, my focus is very much just because I hate posting organic content. Like I really do. I really do. I hate it. Like, because I can run ads and get enough exposure to book enough discovery calls to find people who would be interesting to help run ads for, right? Like that's sorted. But the organic kind of thing to me is like, we all know you should do it. And I'm just kind of like dragging my feet to keep doing it. Do you know what I mean? So when I was right into organic, when TikTok was really booming, as you saw, like I was living just about every other day.
Yeah.
And now that I'm kind of seeing results organically across different platforms, across like my YouTube's gotten a little bit better, which is really cool to see.
Okay.
My Instagram reels have gotten a little bit better, which is really cool to see. And my TikTok, not as much, but I'm just posting across the same content across all, which is probably not best practices. I'm not an organic marketing coach, by the way. Don't take my advice. But yeah, it's really interesting.
So there's clearly a difference between organic marketing and doing Facebook ads. And so
Absolutely.
so when is it the right time to make that shift? When someone's like, okay, I want to scale my business, or when organic marketing's not working anymore, like when is that perfect time to, okay, I need to incorporate ads now?
Such a good question. I made a video on this yesterday.
Oh,
I've
did
actually
you?
yeah, I'm not in my usual villa. I booked this villa. I book villas every now and again, and I do deep work, and I just disappear for like 3 or 4 days and film a lot of content. And one of the videos I did yesterday was kind of around when's the right time to start running paid ads.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you know, generally speaking, if you've got a budget of at least $30 per day for at least 30 days, so 900 a month, that's the deadline, by the way, 30 days, $30 per day, right? So it's not 900 billed up front for cash flow purposes. You get charged for Facebook $30 per day. That's a great place to start. And so that's the financial commitment. That's the sacrifice. And then when is it also, what are other factors that deem it worthy? It's a good time to start ads. there's two parts to this, and I think it's a personal decision. Do you know you have something people want, and you're just amplifying that message, right? So people who have like a lot of views, let's say, what's a good example? There was a relationship coach based in Australia that was helping women who had been in narcissistic relationships. That's a lot of his content. And he had like 7 or 8 videos that had done several million in views. So to me, that's validated. It's like people are listening and people want that. And so we just took those viral posts and reformatted them into ads. We put an intro and a call to action at the end, but used the same, more or less the same video. And then we just ran them as ads to his desired target audience. And straight out of the gate, I would dare say 9 times out of 10, that's a successful formula. But for those people who, which is probably most, but for those people who don't have millions of views and they're doing the organic and maybe not seeing that great results, or they're not getting results, ads can be a great way or a great vehicle to validate within 30 days whether people want that or not, right? And if you can emotionally detach from the idea of investing $900 into something that may not work, if that's the position that you're in, then that's a personal decision. Me personally, I would pay that all days, because if I post organic content about Facebook ads, let's say, or about seeds, let's say, for 2 years and I'm not getting any sales, then the opportunity cost is much more attractive to spend $900 in a month to figure out whether that's something worth pursuing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing. But the financial commitment, $30 a day for 30 days minimum. If you've got that, then yep, you can definitely run ads. The second part is I would run your service through Alex Hormozi's value equation, which is a section of his book, $100 Million Offers. That was a game changer for me 3 or 4 years ago whenever the book came out. Because when I say offer, a lot of people will think discount, which it's not a discount. It's how do you increase the perceived value of the service or product you plan to sell, which could be like, instead of just taking people through a workout as a PT, you could give them instructions on how to shop for the right foods at their local supermarket, right? So that increases the perceived value, even though you create that document once and you just give it to each person you have a PT session with, as kind of a more simple example.
Yeah.
So I'd run my service through Alex Hormozi's value equation, and then that means that I am now advertising my service in the most valuable way possible, which is great. You want people to look at your ad and be like, it's a no-brainer for me to reach out to Teona. It's a no-brainer for me to reach out to Reval or Qvolt Solar or whoever it is, to at least have a conversation to see if they can solve my problem, whatever that is. And then the final part would be more the ad creative stuff, which is how then do I create an ad that maybe no one has ever seen before, at least people haven't seen in my area that I'm advertising. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? And in which case you can do a lot of manual research and type in your industry to the Facebook search or Instagram search or TikTok search, and you'll actually see ads in that niche or industry. That's helpful. But then you're limiting yourself to only being as good as the people that you're already researching. So imitation, which isn't bad to get started, because you would assume that imitation you're taking from the research you're doing is validated because people are running that type of ad. Or there is a wonderful video on my TikTok page and on my YouTube, on my Instagram, called 10 Proven Ad Types. And that's been a collation of all of the different ad creatives and ways that you can promote and advertise your product and service in ways that most people aren't using, or at least aren't aware of. And if you're advertising to a specific geographical location or a particular city or a suburb or even a state, those ad types work exceptionally well. If you're an international brand, like, hard to say. But definitely if you've got like a smaller audience or a niche audience, those ad types in particular, super powerful. Like they're just they require a business owner to put a lot more effort into their ads, and no surprises, they get way better results after crafting those kinds of ads. Yeah.
Hmm, that's cool.
Mm.
Interesting. Just because I feel like a lot of people are afraid of it. Am I talking to myself? No, I'm joking. A lot of people tend to be afraid of ads if you're doing a lot of organic content. Um, but that's good. So being able to actually take some of your content that's already gone viral and repurpose it. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so you don't really have to be afraid of it. Just kind of ease yourself into it. That's cool.
Yeah. I
So,
think so.
sorry?
I think so. I think Gary Vee actually coined that, that particular strategy way back in the day. He was saying something like more or less validating your videos organically first and then taking those and then running them as ads. I think that was Gary Vee I heard from first. Could have been someone else, but that's where I heard it first. Yeah.
I'm gonna look into that.
Mm.
I follow Gary. I think he had a live yesterday or today. Anyway, I love Gary's stuff, and it's very simple. And I think we tend to complicate things, especially in our business. Like we have to be everywhere all at once. But what I'm hearing you say is the more that you simplify things, it's the easier that you can pivot, or the easier that you can get that intuition in order to continue doing what it is that you need to do in your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these villas, okay, hold the ditty. Like, what do you do? What are you doing in these villas? Are you are you meditating? What are you doing? You said intense work.
No, they're a nice spot and a change of environment for me to do deep work. I think I would book a different villa. I've got my main base of operations, right? Which is not, it's 3 minutes down the road. And then I'll book a villa with more space, good views, just a beautiful environment is what I'm looking for. It helps it's a different background so that my organic content and my ads cut through differently. It's not the same background, right? So there's that tiny element. But for me, a change of environment is just such a huge force multiplier for my productivity. You know, like I'll come here and there's this wonderful mattress down here. It's a little bit like there's my blacktop stuff all over it. But there's this kind of daybed mattress thing down here that I've been working on the whole time I've been here for the last 3 or 4 days. These big sliding windows that open up and you can see the whole of Canggu in Bali. Like it's a beautiful environment.
Yeah.
And I just sit here tapping away on my work and away I go, and I get a lot of work done, a lot of work done. So my drivers is that, do I need to shoot more content? Do I need to shoot more ads? That'll be the first priority. Okay, I'll book a villa or a different location to do that. And then I know the added bonus is my productivity is through the roof for 2 to 3 days, to the point where I'm leaving later today. But when I go back to my usual accommodation, I'll be overclocked for a couple of days. I'll be like a CPU that's gone from 100% capacity to 150. And then I'll, go surfing for a couple of days just to down regulate a little bit. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Can you fish while you're there?
Yeah. There's the nearest fishing spot's probably about 20 minutes away. But it's unfortunately, it's either maybe not the right environment because the surf is quite big here, or maybe it's been overfished. I'm not too sure. I'm thinking the latter. The surf is huge here. I don't know how fish live underneath these parts of the ocean. Yeah, it's crazy.
I hear it's amazing over there. I'm excited to one day go. Takes a long time to get from here to there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had this time last year. I call him Canadian Phil. He's a TikTok streamer. Does very, very well. Does a lot of battles and stuff. And I met Canadian Phil. I was out one day. Here's one of the great things about Bali. I was out at the cafe, saw Canadian Phil. Didn't know he was Canadian Phil at that point. And he was sitting down. He was having a dragon fruit smoothie bowl with nuts and granola on it. And he had this big, expensive-looking camera right next to his smoothie bowl as he was eating. Bali's one of those places where you can just look across to someone and be like, "Oh, do you do photography?" And bang, you've got a 2 hour conversation on your hands. And people are open; they're so open to communicating, which is it's a very good vibe here for that reason. Like the vast majority of people are so, dare I say, enlightened, happy here. So it makes for a very great social social interactions here as well. I forget where he's from though, but I see him every day. He does TikTok lives every day. Yeah,
Well, tell Canadian Phil hi from a fellow Canadian.
I will do. I'll send him the profile.
Well, Rob, it was great having you on my show.
No,
Yet
thank
to
you for
be.
having me. It's always good. It's good to catch up again. It's always good to sort of like, hopefully, it was useful information to whoever's watching. And I think that's probably the biggest, on the topics that we've discussed, I think the biggest potential uh, loss may be lack of action or potentially even overanalyzing something before starting. And I think the more courageous that you are and the more brave you are with starting something that you have to hold yourself accountable to me, that's personal development. I think business is so good for developing individuals on a personal level. Like as you know, like business owners just speak a different language compared to people who don't have a business, which is there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like you'll have much, generally speaking, you'll have very different conversations that might be more or less enlightening. Yeah,
It's so true. Find your people and you'll never feel misunderstood.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, on that note, anything else you'd like to share, Revel? What are you doing next? What's going on? So now you're in Bali. What's up next?
Well, I'm in my boring season, right? So I'm doing the same thing every day, which is really good. You know,
Okay.
like certainty and no surprises is a good thing in business, in my opinion. So the solar business is going really well. We've got a fantastic business coach. Um, she was actually one of the. Do you have the Shark Tank over there or the Dragon's Den?
Yes.
Right. So she was a business coach coaching two of the Australian Dragon's Den coaches. So she is just her and her husband. Sorry, she's the heart of the coaching, and her husband is the logic, the accountant. So like they are perfect mix. Anyway, so we've got our quarterly catch up with her and her husband later this week. So that should be very interesting. So that's all headed in the right direction. The advertising is very exciting at the moment. I'm releasing a new ebook, or you could call it a lead magnet, but it's more around the questions that I get asked by business owners, and I'm trying to condense that down into 50 pages at the moment, which I've been working on for about a month. It goes over things like what ad types to run, how to create those ad types, how to set up a Facebook campaign to get customers, how to optimize it, how to read the data, and just really trying to dumb it down because I used to be way too technical with this explanation. And then over time and reps, I've realized and people have told me man, you waffle a lot. Like you talk a lot. It's because I enjoy the topic. I really do. But at times I can go way too far. And so I'm working with a couple of different people and what do they call them? There's another word, but they're like proofreaders for ebooks and lead magnets. And they go, this doesn't make sense, or this image doesn't fit here, or that kind of stuff. So I'm very close to releasing that one, which is very exciting. Yeah.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Um, yeah, well, that's exciting. I was gonna say, well, that's a segue to my book. Hey guys, this is my book.
What's
Um,
it called, sorry?
can you see it?
Gratitude journal? A gratitude journal? Oh, yeah, there you
Yes,
go.
a gratitude journal. Yes.
Nice. I like the image. I really like that image a lot. It's kind of like a brain in a tree. That's what my first thing was.
Yes.
And then it's very soulful first impressions with the hand of God kind of thing going on.
Yeah, that's exactly why I picked it. Thank you for
Good
seeing that.
logo. Look
That's
at that. I got it straight away. Good logo.
That's awesome. I was saying like the tree of life, and what's the highest level of vibration, which is gratitude and God. So thank you for seeing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it a lot.
This is freaking me out, so I need to change this back. Where can people find you? You said your YouTube is now popping. Where can people find you?
You know what? It's just better than it was. Instead of getting like 20 views, I now get 40 views.
That we count
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
our accomplishments here. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get buzzy off platforms where I get very low views, let's say, like YouTube, and then I get like 100% improvement, but it's still small. I'm like, cool. How do we do more than that? Like, how do we do more of that? You know what I mean? I find
Yeah.
instead of having like my TikTok is my biggest account, but engagement is very, very low. 22,000 followers and roughly 700 views, which is more than when I started. But I like the small progress. Small progress to me is always, it holds me consistent, which is lots of fun. Yeah. But yeah, TikTok, if you want to talk to me, Instagram DMs is preferable because then I can voice note. Don't know why voice note isn't a thing in TikTok. I'm not sure. Or a lot of my helpful longer videos around setting up Facebook ads and different ad types for use for different service-based businesses is on my YouTube, a little bit longer, 17 minutes a pop. But they're designed in a way, all my content is designed in a way nowadays where someone, if I'm not boring, someone can watch it and simply take in the information and then hopefully go and action it. And they should see a very big result very quick. Yeah.
I don't think you're boring, Rev. I think you think you're boring, but I don't think you're boring.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right. On that note, I gotta go. Thank you so much for being a part of my show, Rev. And I hope you have continued amazing success wherever you are. And thank you so much for your email the other day. That's a lot of great information, which such a small. I'm glad that you condensed it. Is all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Because
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's what
overthink
everyone
it.
told me to do. They're like, you're giving me way too much information. Make it simple. I'm like, hey, here's a to-do list. Yeah, 100%. That's
Break it
good.
all
Thank you.
down. I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I love talking to people about business and stuff and all that. And you had some really awesome questions that really kind of made me think outside of the box, which I really appreciate. Yeah.
You're welcome. Anytime. That's what I do. You
Thank
guys
you.
for thank you guys for checking out my live. I will see you guys on my next live. Have an amazing day. And please, please do not trust what I say or what Revel says. Trust a vibe because people can tell you anything these days, okay?
Oh, I love that. Yes, yes. Don't follow the gurus. Figure it out for yourself. Absolutely. Like
Figure
even
it
what
out
I
for
say has
yourself, your
massive nuances
instinct.
to it. Yes,
Yeah, it's your
absolutely.
intuition. All right, I'll see you later, Rev.
Have a good day. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye, guys.